Okay, today we are talking about proportions. Again, this is one of those lessons that you've seen before to an extent. There may be a few things that are different this year than last year, but for the most part, a lot of this is going to be review. Before we get too far into this though, there's a few definitions you need to add to your vocabulary sheet. So go ahead, pause the video, and I want you to write down each of these definitions. So we have the cross product, which is where we multiply the numerator of one fraction by the denominator of the fraction across the equal sign. So the example that we used was 2/3 equals 6/21, which hopefully you already know is not true, but to check we're going to cross multiply. So we're going to take the 2 and times it by the 21, and we're going to take the 3 and times it by the 6 and see if they're the same. So we have 2 times 21 and 3 times 6, which obviously are not the same, so those fractions aren't equal. Your equivalent means exactly the same, or two things that are equal to each other. Proportion is two equal ratios. So 2/7 and 4/14 are a proportion because they are equal. And that's how we set it up, that's what it looks like. Proportional, two fractions are proportional if you cross multiply and you get the same number. So our two fractions earlier in our cross multiply definition, those were clearly not proportional because when we cross multiplied they were different. If you need more time, pause the video, make sure you have all of that written down so that we can refer to it later. Okay, proportions. Here's an example. You're going to see things like this quite a bit. They'll give you a table and they're asking us, tell whether x and y are proportional. And if you go back to your definition, that means that when we cross multiply that they're equal. It also means that they form a proportion, so that one is equal to the other. So we have our table of x's and y's, and the first step to compare is to compare each x to y by putting them in fraction form. We're going to make a ratio in fraction form and divide. So we're going to put them all in fraction form. So we're comparing x to y. So I'm comparing 1/2 to 3. And I'm going to divide that in a little while and see what it equals. I'm also comparing 1 to 6. So 1, 2, 6. And I'm also comparing 3/2 to 9. So I'm comparing 3/2 to 9. Now notice that my x's are all on top and my y's are all on bottom. That's really important. We can't mix those up. We need to make sure if the x's are on top in the first one, they need to be on top in all of them. Okay? So number 2, if all ratios divide to the same thing. So if all ratios divide to the same thing, it is proportional. If all ratios divide to the same thing, it is proportional. So remember that fraction bar means divide. So we're just going to go through the process of dividing each of these to see what they equal. So my first one, I'm dividing 1/2, and I'm dividing that by 3. Sorry, it's kind of hard to see that one there. 1/2 divided by 3, when I hit enter, I get 1/6. So this fraction is the same as 1/6, and if I want to turn that into a decimal, I can use my best friend button and I get 0.1666. So 0.166 repeating. Now I want to check 3/2 over 9 and see what that equals. So in my calculator, I'm going to put 3/2. Oh, we're skipping one. I'm sorry. We got 1/6 right here. I'll slow down and we'll go back to 1/6. we need to see what 1 over 6 is equal to, 1 divided by 6. So I just do 1 divided by 6, and it's probably going to be obvious that we already did that. We did that right here. We knew that 1 over 6 was equal to this. So 1 over 6 is still equal to that. And you can see that here in the calculator, 0.1666 repeating. So I'm going to write that 0.166, and that just keeps repeating. So now we're ready to check that third ratio and see if it's the same. So I need 3/2 first, and then I'm going to divide that by 9 and see what I get. So when I hit enter, I get 1/6, and if I need to use my best friend button, I can, or if I remember that that's the same as the last one. So this becomes 1/6, or 0.166 repeating. So if all the ratios divide to the same thing, it is proportional. 1/2 over 3 divided to 0.166666, 1 over 6 divided to 0.166666, and 3/2 over 9 divided to 0.166666. So that means that this table right here, these x's and y's, they are proportional. We can say that they are proportional. They form a proportion. Now the next example, they can present it to you a little bit different. Maybe not in a table. They might present it to you like this. It says to tell whether two rates or ratios form a proportion. So we're just checking to see if these two rates or ratios form a proportion. And the first one is 7 inches in 9 hours, or 42 inches in 54 hours. We want to know if this ratio is proportional to this ratio. So number 1 says to set up a blank using the given information. So we're going to set up a proportion using the given information. Set up a proportion using the given information. So my proportion, my first ratio, 7 inches in 9 hours, goes on one side, 7 inches in 9 hours. And I'm going to see if that is equal to, I need to make sure I put inches on top on this side, so my inches need to be on top on the other side. 42 inches in 54 hours. So that's our proportion. We're going to check and see if it's true or not, but we have it set up. 7 over 9 equals 42 over 54. So number 2 says to find the blank. We're going to find the cross products. We're going to find the cross products. And remember from your definition, that means I take the numerator from this side and multiply it across by the denominator. And then I do the opposite. I take this denominator and multiply it across by the other side's numerator. So it kind of looks like this. So 7 times 9 is one of my cross products. The other one, 7 times 54 is one of my cross products. Be careful you don't make that mistake. 7 times 54 is one side, and the other is 9 times 42. So 7 times 54 and 9 times 42. So those are our cross products. Now number 3 says to compare the products. So let's actually do that multiplication. 7 times 54 becomes 378. So this one is 378. 9 times 42 is also 378. Okay, so one cross product is equal to the other cross product. So what that means is, number 3, when we compare the products, if the answers are the same, so equal answers are proportional. If the answers are the same, if my cross products are the same, then it is proportional. If I get different answers, then it's not proportional. So if the cross products are the same, it makes a proportion. If they're different, it's not proportional. Okay, so quickly, let's go through these couple examples and then give you some time to work on this on your own. Number 1 says to tell whether the ratios form a proportion. So I have 1/3 and 7/21. So I can do this two different ways. We'll do it one way for number 1 and a different way for number 2. For this one, let's actually divide 1 by 3 and 7 by 21 and see what we get. So if I do 1 divided by 3, so we're using our first example up here. We're doing it that way. 1 divided by 3 is 0.33333. So this one becomes 0.3 repeating forever. And 7 divided by 21, 7 divided by 21, which I got from right here, is 0.33333. So 0.3 repeating. So 1 divided by 3, 7 divided by 21 are both 0.3 repeating. So that means, yes, they are proportional. Okay. Number 2, we're going to follow our second example, 3/4 and 24/18. We want to know if they're proportional, so I can set up a proportion, 3/4 equals 24/18, and I can cross multiply and divide to see if they're the same thing. So 3 times 18, my numerator times my denominator, equals 54. 4 times 24, 4 times 24 is equal to 96. So this multiplication becomes 54. This one becomes 96. And those two numbers right there obviously are not equal. So number 2 is not proportional. No, it's not. And hopefully you can see even before you do that multiplication, if we look on the left, the numerator is smaller than the denominator. But on the second one, our numerator is bigger than the denominator. That's a big clue that they're not going to be proportional, because if they were, this numerator would be smaller than the denominator as well. All right. So number 3, 7 inches in 9 hours and 42 inches in 54 hours. It wants to know, is that form a proportion or not? So let's do 7 divided by 9. So we're going to set that one up as a ratio. And then 42 and 54. So 42/54, which means 42 divided by 54. And let's see what those are equal to. We're setting them both up as fractions in fraction form, dividing, and we're going to see what our answer is. So 7 divided by 9 equals 0.7 repeating. So I can write that here, 0.7 repeating. And 42 divided by 54 looks like the same answer to me, 0.7 repeating. So this is also 0.7 repeating. So yes, those two form a proportion. Okay, number 4. You can do 90 sit-ups in 2 minutes. Your friend can do 135 sit-ups in 3 minutes. Do these rates form a proportion? So let's use example 2 on this one. Let's set up a proportion and cross multiply. You can do 90 sit-ups in 2 minutes. Your friend can do 135 sit-ups in 3 minutes. So my sit-ups are on top, my minutes are on bottom, and now I'm going to cross multiply and see if they're the same. 90 times 3 equals 270. You're welcome to put that in your calculator if you want to double check my work. 2 times 135 equals 270. And those two are equal, so that means that yes, you and your friend make a proportion with the number of sit-ups that you can do in that number of minutes. Okay. So hopefully this was a good review of some things you've seen in the past. If not, hopefully you learned a couple of things. Right here we've got your pause and try problems. Same process as we went through here on the left. I don't care if you do it the first or the second way. You can set them up as fractions and divide to see if they're the same, or you can set up a proportion and cross multiply. Either way, you get the same result. So whichever one you're more comfortable with, go ahead and solve these 4 problems. Bring it up to me when you're finished. And we'll make sure that you're doing it correctly before we let you move on to the practice.